I'm Mary Lou, and today I'd like to talk to you about graphic novels. Graphic novels are basically books that have illustrations in them, and basically the entire story is told through illustrations. The first one I'm going to talk about today is called French Milk by Lucy Neisley, and this is her first book. She actually has written 6 altogether. Also, she has written some books for children. But this one is about when Lucy and her mom went to France to celebrate her mom's 50th birthday and Lucy's 22nd birthday. And it just tells about their adventures. Now, this one actually has illustrations, but she also has some photographs in there from the actual trip. So that makes it kind of interesting. You can see what they really look like in addition to how she drew them for this book. Another one of hers that I really like is called Relish, because her dad is a chef and her mom grew fresh vegetables for a farm market. So Lucy spent a lot of her time around people who were foodies. And in the book Relish, she talks about that. And most recently, she wrote a book called Kid Gloves, which is about her experience with having her baby. So that's Lucy Neisley. The next one I have is called They Called Us Enemy by George Takei. And you probably know George Takei because he was Sulu on Star Trek. But what I didn't know about him until I read this book, and I'd read some other things as well, was that he and his family were taken to what they called a relocation center because they lived in California, and it was right after Pearl Harbor, and the United States government was afraid that anyone who was either of Japanese descent, even if they'd been born in the United States, or were Japanese originally from there, could not be loyal to the United States. So this is what they decided to do. And it really, it's kind of disturbing to read what went on, but it's a good story because George's family, his parents, to them it was very important to try to maintain as normal a family life as they could. So for George and his little brother and his little sister, they had some adventures, and it wasn't all bad, and all his memories aren't bad. But it's something that he does talk about, and I think he does speeches and things like that as well. But it's very good. The next one I have is called Agatha, The Real Life of Agatha Christie. And Agatha, I've read some of her mysteries, and they're always very good. But in 1926, there was a mystery about her because she disappeared. And no one knew where she had gone. And her husband actually was a suspect. They thought that he had killed her. And eventually she was found, and she was okay, but she claimed that she lost her memory and didn't know who she was for a while. And that's why she couldn't find her way home. But this tells that story, but it also tells her early years. This is basically a biography, but it is in sort of cartoon form. This is what a graphic novel is. And it also talks about her life because she traveled a lot all over the world, and that's how she got some of the ideas for some of her books. And during World War I, she worked as an assistant pharmacist, and she worked a lot with poisons for whatever reason, and that gave her ideas for some of her books. So that's where she really did write a lot about her life in her books. And if you wanted to read a little bit more about her, I'm sure there are biographies out there, but I also read a fiction novel called The Mystery of Mrs. Christie by Marie Benedict, and it also kind of focuses on that time when she was missing. The next one that I have is called Syllabus, and it's by Lynda Barry. And Lynda Barry is a cartoonist and author, and this is basically her experience teaching a class. She was asked to teach an art class at university, and she had no experience with that, so she called in some friends of hers who had taught, and she asked for their syllabi and how they taught their classes and such. And she really went with a simplified model. She had the kids get a composition notebook, and she wrote out a lot of the instructions and the activities and assignments and things like that with her own illustrations. So that was a lot of fun to look at. And if you look at this one, it is packed super tight with illustrations and writings, and she has examples of her students, and they were college students, their artwork. And one thing that I thought was very interesting and I took with me was that one of her quotes is, "Draw without thinking about it." So she realized that people came into her classes with different levels of artistic ability or experience. And so she wanted everyone to just kind of start from scratch and learn to draw and not think about it and practice, practice, practice and draw everything. That was like one of her things. So this is a really neat book to look at. And I was thinking, I haven't done it yet, but if you wanted to, you could use some of these exercises to practice learning to draw yourself if you wanted to. The next one I have is called The Complete Persepolis. And I think it's the complete version because I think it was published in 2 different volumes originally. And this is one of the first ones that I ever read, and I think it's from 92 or 93. But it is by Marjane Satrapi, and she is a woman who is from Iran, and she was 10 years old in 1980, so that was right after the revolution, when the Ayatollah Khomeini took over and the Shah was ousted. So this is how, her family was wealthy. They were very westernized. So basically they lived the way we did. And then all of a sudden that year, things changed. And not only did they not have the things that they had, that they used to have, they lost a lot of their wealth. And of course, the women especially had to start dressing differently because that was the rule that came into effect. So this is her story of her childhood in Iran. And then I also wanted to mention that some classic novels and some more recent novels have been made into graphic novels. So one that I read not too long ago was The Handmaid's Tale, and it's very colorful and well illustrated, and just as disturbing as the book was and as the show is that's been on Hulu. But there have been other classics, like I say. I think trying to think, one that I read not too long ago was I've seen things like All Quiet on the Western Front, and The Great Gatsby is a recent one that has been made into a graphic novel. So if you read it before and you want a little bit of a review or a refresher, that's a good way to read something. Or if you just want to start reading novels that you don't have time for, they're really usually very quick reads. That's all I have for you today, and I hope you found something that you'd like to read. I really do enjoy graphic novels, and I think you will as well. See you next time.